everyone, it's the amazing people of Glastonbury episode 12, and today I've got with me Mark from the music shop Sonus Magnus, which Mark just told me means music
sound. Noise.
Sound magic in Latin.
Yeah, magical noise.
Which is the best name for a music shop I think I've heard in ages. Probably the coolest.
Magus or Magus, I never really know quite how to pronounce it. Also means learned man. So I'm the learned man of noise.
Music. Learned man of noise. Yeah. I like that. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So like a scholar or something. You know, like I can make more noise and quite good at doing it. One of my neighbours gets very upset with me. Has called the police. Apologies to him. Sorry, David.
So, wise man of noise. What was the first ever instrument that you learnt to play?
It was probably a record player. My mum and dad bought me a dance set record player from a second-hand shop. I was like 7, so it would have been like 1970 or something.
Yeah.
And I suppose it was a record player and a violin, because I was learning the violin at school, so it was technically the violin.
Yeah.
Except I dismantled the record player and I took the bit that the record touches and goes on and tried to connect it to my violin to turn my violin into an electric
violin. Did that work?
The only reason I was playing the violin, not very well, the only reason I was playing the violin was because my mum and dad had insisted that I learn the violin so that I could have the Woolworths audition electric guitar that I'd seen in Woolworths in New Milton, I think.
What?
In Hampshire.
I didn't even know that Woolworths sold electric guitars.
They did electric guitars in the 1960s and the early 1970s.
Oh my god,
really cool
how
as well.
fabulous.
I've been trying to buy one ever since. And I missed one. Ian, who had the record station on the other side of the road down there, had one in his shop and sold it. And I was like, oh my god, this is like, that's my holy grail, you know. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I've sold it. I was like, how much? It's 75 quid. I'm like, no. So, yeah.
Did you get that Woolworths guitar?
No.
From your...
No, I'm still waiting to get it. I've got a search running on eBay. And then just before lockdown, there was one on there, but it was local pickup only, and it was like up in Wales somewhere, so like Merthyr Tydfil or something, which I can't pronounce.
Yeah. What colour was it?
It's called Sunburst, so in the middle it's kind of like a golden colour, and then it goes to red and then black around the outside. A little bit
beautiful.
like that one there, actually.
Those are amazing.
Yeah, so like that, but with like really crappy pickups in it and like big old clunky switches, and you should imagine it's crackly as hell. Yeah. I did buy a similar guitar. I bought a K, a sort of a Les Paul shape, which is that black guitar shape there.
Yeah.
Off eBay just before the lockdown.
Yeah.
Which like when you touch the front of it, it's very microphonic. It all comes out the amplifier. Anything you do, so kind of cheap 1960s, really kind of bad copies of like the American guitars, I think.
So Mark, Sonus Magnus is sound magic, and you guys really do produce a lot of sound magic on the high street. I remember on one of my first trips to Glastonbury, you just started the Glastonbury Community Guitar Project.
Oh yeah, okay.
Which is one of the most beautiful ideas I'd ever heard, but just in case anyone who's watching this hasn't heard about visited Glastonbury or knows about the project, would you tell us about it and like tell us your inspiration behind it?
Well, it all started with this guy called Ricky, and Ricky is someone who is occasionally homeless, I think, and was basically had nowhere to keep the guitar, so he wanted a guitar, but he used to, so I gave him a guitar as a gift, but he used to bring the guitar back to me and say, can I give it back to you at the end of the day, because there's nowhere for me to put this. And then I started to think, well, he's not the only person that's in this position. So I started branding up like some of the cheap guitars that came and just writing Glastonbury Community Guitar on them. And I had the shop on the other side of the road, so I put guitar hangers on the outside of the shop, which I can't do on this one, but on that one they were covered by the kind of overhanging shop, so even if it poured with rain, the guitar would stay relatively dry.
Yeah.
And the guy that I had working for me on the other side of the road was going, you can't do that, Mark, people will just nick them. And I said, no they won't. like
It's a
we're
community
providing somebody
spirit
with a
thing.
service.
Yeah.
So if they broke the strings, people would bring them back, sometimes covered in blood. God knows what they were doing with them, and like hang them back on the hanger. And I'd go out and, all right, need some strings. Put the strings back on it, set it all up again, ready to go again. So I think about the fourth guitar that Ricky kept losing them as well, actually, because he was hiding them in hedges. So this is part of what prompted it. And I think the fourth guitar that I gave to Ricky actually was the first community guitar and had community guitar written on it.
Yeah, I love that because everyone wrote messages on them.
Yeah, and then there was a guy who saw me give the guitar to Ricky, and I was driving a car. He took offence to the fact that I had a car and he didn't, I think, or something like that. It was a guy who'd come to Glastonbury. He wasn't a Glastonbury person, but he was here playing a drum. And he smashed the guitar to pieces in the middle of the road.
What?
After he grabbed it from Ricky, started playing it after I'd gone, and smashed it to bits. So Ricky kind of came back in with it in bits. He's like, "I'm really sorry, but this
he
happened."
must have been
I'm like,
devastated.
"Oh, okay." So I just made another one, and then from that guitar onwards, I think pretty much every guitar's survived a lot of things. There's one which is a little bit hard to repair at the moment, but I think the joy of it is that it's not my guitar anymore. So people give me guitars to give to people as well, and I gift them out into the community, and actually I see them as belonging to them.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like the guy that maintains it for the community. So there's a guy down at the church playing one, came and picked one up today.
Brilliant.
And then what's harder about that at the moment is because of the
Corona.
virus thing.
Yeah.
I either have to quarantine them or clean them or something. So I've got
All the lemon smells. Oh, cute! It's a little.
So I've got some
is
of
that
these.
a ukulele?
Well,
No,
I haven't written on it yet.
Charango.
This is a Glastonbury community ukulele, and it's plastic, so it's waterproof. So that means
You can wash
that I
it.
can wash it. So I was in the bath with one of these this morning. It's kind of like a rubber duck a little bit, isn't it? So I was in the bath.
The
I just
music
kind of
man's
washed
rubber
it
duck.
down, and then it's ready to go again. You know. So they've got a faster turnover, and I've got a website for it as well, actually,
Oh, cool. What's
which
the
is-
website?
which is going to become an official charity at some point. It's called playitforwards.org.uk.
Play It Forward.
So playitforwards.org.uk.
I
And
love
you'll
that.
see like a picture of one of these on there with a smiley face on it. Like that.
I think we should paint smiley faces on all
And one
of
of
them.
these was, at least one of these was bought by Jill Barker from Middlewood Farm. She made like a donation to it so we could buy, I think there's about 6 of those floating around Glastonbury somewhere.
Oh, wow.
And again, I lent one of those out to one of the first ones I lent out to this girl, and I thought, after about 2 months, I thought, oh well, okay, that's never coming back.
And she
And then a
brought it
while
back.
later, she just rocks up on the doorstep and goes, "Oh, I brought your ukulele back." I'm just like, wow, it works, it works. There's one of those missing, so if anybody's seen it,
That is so wonderful.
it's probably in somebody's living room or something. Okay, people just run up to me on the street and they'll go, "Oh, I've got one of your guitars," and they just give them back.
Yeah.
Or people hand them in at the restaurants, and the restaurant will call me and go, "Oh, do you know we've got one of your guitars? Would you like it back?" And they've all come back. So
Isn't
it's
that
kind
lovely?
of, yeah,
Glastonbury spirit, but
'cause people get it that it belongs to them, and that I'm just I'm kind of like helping them look after them.
yeah. But do you ever have, because that's 2 questions. I'll start with my first question.
Right.
Do you ever have like people who come in and they're sort of, you can tell that they're anxious to escape for a while through music, and they want to go and play, and so they come in and they're like that, and then you give them the guitar and they go off and they play for a while and they come back and they're a whole new person, and you feel their energy is completely transformed.
I think music is, if you think about it, it's a language. And it's not a language as in we're conveying ideas to each other back and forth. Music's a language of emotions, and music is a language that predates the spoken language.
Mm-hmm.
So I could talk about how much I love my wife, or I could talk about my relationship with my mum, and you get some kind of sense of it. If I played
Put
it
it
to you
into
as a
music,
song,
yeah.
I can take your like this middle bit here where our kind of emotions
Energy
live,
field,
and
yeah.
I can do that, and I can lull it
Ripple
around.
it out.
You know, like when you see a really good movie and you're watching it, and suddenly you go, "Ooh," and then tears come out. You think,
How
or
did that
I
happen?
end up thinking, hang on a minute, how did that musician that wrote the score do that? And I'll go back and listen to it later, and I'll go, oh, they changed from like major, which is traditionally in Western culture, and not all cultures, but our culture, is a happy key, and then minor is like a sad key. So they suddenly do this switch from major to minor, and your belly just feels like it goes, almost like you're in the cinema and your belly falls off the front of the seat, and then the tears come out. It's like, I think it's a skill, and I think people learn the language of music through when they're growing up and stuff. People go and sing in churches or in choirs at school, or
play
so
the drums.
Generally happy stuff. Play the drums, yeah, up a tour.
But it's a language without language, and so it's instant connection no matter who you are, how old you are, what race, you know, like it's a language without language. It's completely unifying, isn't it? Because animals respond to music too.
Yeah, they do. I've been trying to figure out birds. I thought I'd got birds figured out during the lockdown because I was lying in bed playing the guitar. I heard my neighbour's dog barking, and I noticed a pigeon was going ooh, 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 or whatever in time with the dog, and I was thinking, that's really interesting. How's that working?
Yeah.
Then I realised I was at a certain elevation because I was at the top of my house, and they live up a hill.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, hang on, the dog's in time with the pigeon because the pigeon's there, and then they're all at this elevation. Sound takes quite a long time to travel. We're all sitting on the ground looking up at the birds thinking there's no relationship between any of the sounds the birds are making because they don't sound like they're doing anything in time, and they don't sound like they're doing anything in tune. But I think the tune conveys something about the wind, and I'm convinced that they're all singing in time because they're elevated. So we've got like, maybe there's like 1,000 feet going up that way for me to hear that bird, and like 1,500 feet going that way. So there's like half a second difference.
Yeah.
For them, they're all at the same elevation, and they're like, they've got direct lines of sight at each other, or all similar. And I reckon they're all like kind of this. I reckon the Earth has a natural rhythm, and they're just playing out the Earth's natural rhythm.
Because
And we're just bumbling around on the ground, completely out of touch with it. Some of us, maybe. But
it's beautiful to think that, because I wonder what the wind through the leaves sounds like to birds, and if they try
probably
to convey
completely
that.
different.
Yeah, or like to dogs, because like how dogs
I
pick
think
up so much from
Oh
smell.
God, you've
maybe
got me.
with
You shouldn't
ear.
talk to me about dogs.
Oh, tell
Well, okay, so human beings, we go around on with this intelligence, right? I've
Yeah.
got very high IQ. I'm autistic. I'm or got Asperger's apparently. They told me I have, so I've got it down on a piece of paper, put it in my pocket.
Great, thanks. I got that with me now.
So I did the Mensa test, but I drove up the motorway. I'm going to make loads of excuses for why I'm not in Mensa now. I missed it by a point, but I did a 120-mile-an-hour dash up a motorway because I got stuck in traffic, ran in at a bit of a tiz, and it was all bright lights and stuff. And I suspect I probably would fare slightly better if I had
Yeah.
more favourable test conditions for my condition.
Oh, absolutely.
But certainly my Mensa IQ, one of them is something like 148, I think, and the other one is 160 something. So I'm supposed to be quite intelligent.
You
We've
are
got
quite
this
intelligent.
IQ thing going on, right? And then dogs, their IQ is about 20, maybe 30. Okay, dogs are really stupid, according to humans, right? Dolphins are quite clever, according to humans, but dogs
pigs,
are
yeah.
stupid. But we're judging dogs based on
Our
our
standards.
primary quotient, like our intelligence quotient, what we're good at.
Yeah,
We're not going to dogs, right? Okay, who's got the best smell?
exactly.
So dogs have olfactory intelligence. They
Yeah.
have their own kind of way of being clever. So
They can-
my dog will smell something half a mile away. He's got two different senses of smell. One for checking stuff out close to him, and one for checking stuff out like over there. And he probably could tell you when the weather is going to change way before we can, or way before any of our electronics or anything else can. So I think I've got this whole thing about dogs' intelligence, human intelligence, and it's like,
But that's how it is even among humans. Like we've all got something. We've all got our our gift.
yeah,
And if we compare ourselves by a set standard or like each other's standards, then you don't live up to it. But if you kind of just go, okay, well, I'm just going to do my best today, take it
Yeah.
a day at a time, then you're constantly growing and evolving and learning at your own pace, which is all you can do, really. I don't know. As I've gotten older, I just struggle with all of this. Like, if I had to go back to school now, I think I'd just hate it.
I'm not sure about school. I think schools
It's
designed
silly.
to,
Like, standardised
Yeah.
tests just don't
but
make sense.
they're really hideously out of date. I think school is designed to put children into Victorian workhouses or to like get them ready for like absolutely basic work, and it's so out of date. And when the teachers don't know how to switch computers on, but the kids know how to like Google things, they should be teaching people how to Google things.
Exactly.
And teaching people how to do Boolean searches and all that kind of stuff. Because if we don't know how to do that, then we can't find things on the internet. If we can't find information, then we probably don't have the resources we need to get whatever it is we want to get next or whatever. So it's important.
What I think that we need is sort of like some sort of like a more holistic system, because you know how you learn through teaching.
Yeah.
So like you say, if we had like the younger kids teaching the teachers how to use the computers,
That'd
the
be great.
teachers, and like the teachers teaching the kids, or like grandparents coming in teaching the kids how to knit, and then the whole community gets involved, and it's more holistic, and everyone's learning something, and it's not boring or a chore for anyone.
I think there's two kinds of teacher, and the two kinds of teacher are the kind of teacher that thinks that because they're the teacher, they know something that the student doesn't.
Don't know, yeah.
So they treat the student as if the student needs to know this thing that they know, and because they don't, they give themselves a higher status.
Yeah.
Or you get another kind of teacher who basically sees themselves as the student's equal. And I can think of a couple of headmasters of my youngest son's schooling who fit that criteria, I think, or a couple of teachers who fit that criteria, who actually treat the students like fellow human beings, and they're in it together, and it's a learning journey together, and they learn from each other. So the teacher learns about teaching from the child learning about learning, and it goes hand in hand, and there's a mutual respect thing. The ones that think they know something, they're in serious trouble, and the kids that are being taught by them are going to turn into adults that think they know something, and then they're in serious trouble. So that's the flaw. That's the biggest flaw in education, I think.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. You don't know this about me. I was a kindergarten teacher in Kenya before I moved here. And the thing that I struggled with, I went to a beautiful school. My boss was awesome. If you see this, Carrie, hi. And we did a system called Reggio Emilia, which is like a mix of Waldorf and Montessori. It's sort of like mixed and mingled. So the kids would come in, they'd choose their own lesson and stuff. But even just then, you've got 14 kids with you, and you're the adult in charge, and you have to get them from point A to point B without them chopping each other's heads off or whatever.
Yeah.
So you sort of, even when you're trying to be calm and gentle about it, kind of have to go, come on guys, like, let's be nice to each other. Come on guys, let's walk in a straight line. Please don't scream, the big children have exams.
2 by 2 holding hands.
And so even then, like, when you're trying to be nice about it, you have to enforce the rules. And I just didn't like having to do that. So literally I had a group of like 14 4-year-olds who, because instead of telling them off, I'd just be like, seriously guys, you know you're not meant to do this. And this one day, like towards the end of term, this little girl goes, like, her mum had done something silly, and she stopped and looked at her mum and went, seriously mum? It was quite funny. And that's when I went, I've been your teacher for too long.
My eldest daughter is also teaching small kids. She's in Moray in Scotland, I think. I don't know what the nursery's called, I can't remember. But she went through, her first education was at Montessori.
Yeah.
And they don't let them use scissors until they're ready and all that sort of stuff, do they?
Yeah.
And then she went to Steiner School after that for a bit. So she's done Montessori and Steiner School, then she went into mainstream education. And then she went into university, but I don't think university really worked for her, and I can understand why. So she's gone back to teaching herself, and she's like looking at different ways of doing what she wants to do, but she's got a more unique perspective on it, I think, because of her background. She can see quite well what works and what doesn't work. So I kind of imagine at some point she'll create her own system, possibly, but certainly on that path anyway.
What's been the most recent instrument that you've learnt how to play? Or like,
Mouth organ, probably.
Oh, cool.
Harmonica. I'm say learning how to play. I don't know that I'm very good at it, but.
And like how we were talking about the book earlier, do you ever find that like you're learning to play instruments in different ways? Like, so you'll learn a new skill on a guitar that you've never learned
tuned
before.
my guitar completely differently. I took. I'm trying to work out how to tune. I want to tune a guitar so I have to move my fingers as little as possible, and that sounds like a terrible cheat, but it's like. Or I've always thought that was cheating, but in a way it's like, actually isn't that a more intelligent way of playing the guitar?
Yeah.
So I've worked out my own tuning system, which is based around a minor chord, and then I've been learning chords in the tuning system that I've figured out. And it's, if I can just put one finger across the strings and get the sound that I'm looking for, that seems to me to be like the most like logical way to do it. But then if I play it the way I would play the guitar normally with the scales that I'd learned with the tuning the other way round, it makes all these really weird noises.
Yeah.
So it's and in a way it's tuned like a harmonica as well, actually, thinking about it. It's quite good fun.
Mark, how long have you been living in Glastonbury for?
I've been living in Glastonbury for I don't know if it's 7 years. Yeah, I think it's 7 or 8, but I'm not actually sure.
Yeah.
Depends how old the dog is. Because we got the dog. This is my first dog.
What's his name?
He's called George.
Georgie.
And we
Cute.
got the dog because we were moving to Glastonbury.
And
So
you
my
could
wife,
have a dog
my wife
because of all the
basically said to me,
space.
right, we're moving to Glastonbury. And I was like, no, I don't want to go to Glastonbury. She's like, no, we're going there. And I'm like, no. But she's the grown-up, so she's got the mortgage. And I'm like, oh no. So I had to sell lots of motorbikes. I used to build choppers and things like that. So I got like this big, long grey chopper thing that looked like a tractor in a shipping container in our back garden. So lots of that had to go. I've only got I've got 2 motorbikes actually still. And I don't ride them very often because I'm very busy doing this. And now I've got really sidetracked, haven't I? But anyway, so my son, so I was told I'm moving and that was it. And I was a bit cross about it. My son, he was bribed. It's like, right, okay, he used to watch this guy, I think it's Think Noodles on YouTube, this guy that plays Minecraft or something.
Yeah.
One of these, or maybe it was Dan TDM, one of them had a golden retriever. And my son had got his head around the idea of getting a golden retriever, so we've got this golden retriever puppy, 8 weeks old with or 12 weeks old maybe, with razor sharp teeth that just shredded my arm. So, and I had an operation on my foot.
They look like teddy bears, yeah.
See these scars down the back of my. I've got one of those on each foot.
Oh jeez.
So the first one I'd had done about 3 months before we moved. The second one I had done 2 weeks before we moved, and I had my foot in a boot.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of arrived in Glastonbury with a dog I couldn't walk because I'd got my foot in a boot that was shredding my arms. And then it got diarrhea, I seem to remember, and so it was all a bit.
It's
It
hilarious.
was a fraught time, definitely, and I couldn't drive my car properly because, of course, you can't do anything if this foot's in plaster. Or actually, I got my. No, I'm not going to tell you because it was illegal, so I probably shouldn't mention any of it.
Because
So-
golden retrievers are like the cutest thing, and you think it's going to be an
yeah,
adorable
he's
teddy
lovely.
bear,
He's
and then he's a
absolutely-
monster.
Well, he can be a monster, but he's also absolutely lovely. He's totally adorable. I mean, we went through about, I don't know, 3 months or something of like thinking, oh my God, we better take the dog back. So we actually rang the breeder when he was going to go back. We started dog training. We said to the dog trainer we should take it back, and she came and did some special training with us and stuff. I'm really glad I kept him. Or we kept him. Who's this man?
Sorry guys. Well, Mark's got some people at the front. I'm going to show you around the cool guitars.
Yeah,
So Mark, if you look at Glastonbury, as most people do, as like a mystery school.
as a what?
A mystery school. And
Is
like
it?
as a place where you sort of,
Okay.
because it's so open, that's what I
Yeah.
mean, like because it's such an open, accepting town,
Yeah, I'll go with that.
people give you the freedom to be yourself. It sort of becomes like a magnifying glass or like a mirror, doesn't it? Well, What would you say, like from your own experiences or what you've seen people feel, are like the biggest lessons that Glastonbury teaches people on their journey?
I don't know. I was going to say, oh God, I've got my mum in my head now going, no, Cole, you shouldn't say that.
No, say it, say
She doesn't talk like that at all. My mum definitely doesn't talk like that. She's from Birmingham, she's very posh. No, erase that, quick. No. I don't want to like do any soothsaying. I mean, people, when I first moved here, people were going like, people would just come and go. Like every 2 years, people turn up and they'd like here for a bit, and then they'd kind of turn inside out, explode, and then disappear. And I was like, wow, what's that all about? And everyone was like, oh yeah, it's the ley lines. Didn't you feel it when you moved here? And it's like, I think my wife was drawn here because she liked the place, but not because of the ley lines, I don't think.
Yeah.
But you'd have to check with her. And because I was dragged here kicking and screaming, I don't think I experienced like this pull to be here, and then this like magic, and then this kind of like dark night of the soul, and then back to London to go back to like accountancy or something, like whatever people do. So I was going to say I'm immune to that experience, but
Yeah.
I might not be. I might still have that to come. I might just be a bit slow because of the autism,
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I feel that way when people, sometimes people go, oh, the energy of Glastonbury, and I go, well, it's a lovely place, but
I'm like going, what?
oh,
Where
the
is
ley
this
line,
energy?
can you feel the ley line down here? And I go, it's a nice place to stand. I don't know about the ley line, but it's
Can
a
we
nice
go back
place
to
to
dogs?
stand.
There's a thing on the internet, and they reckon that dogs always orient themselves north to south when they defecate.
Oh,
So
That's
I have
interesting.
been meaning to check to see if my dog does this, but he does seem he spins round and round and round, then he stops, decides on the position. I'm not just saying that flippantly. I think there is definitely some kind of magnetic,
yeah, cool.
like it's almost like an outer coating of magnetic kind of lines around the Earth for
Well,
whatever reason. So
there-
I think,
yeah.
and I think like you take a racing pigeon to like France and throw it out your car, and it will end up back in your house before you do. So that's kind of a weird phenomenon. How do they know where to go? It's like so. I think, and that's called. There's different kinds of perception, aren't there? So there's like, I've got like the obvious five, and then there's some other kind of hidden perceptions that people don't necessarily talk about. So I think that perception is called something like some magnetoreception or something like that, which pigeons are supposed to be able to tune into the magnetic field of the Earth. So dogs as well, if that particular anecdote is true. And then some humans, definitely in my experience of living here, are definitely more sensitive to things like EMFs.
Yeah.
So some people walk in here and they're just like, wow, man, what the fuck? Have you got Wi-Fi going on in here? Right, so, well, you're doing my nut. What's going on in here?
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, sorry, I do actually have CCTV. The whole thing is Wi-Fi. It does all like feed to a phone at the front of the shop and another one up there, and it sends signals out, and so the whole place is probably riddled with it. We're probably sitting direct line of sight between a camera and a God knows what. But, and there's Bluetooth in all the speakers and everything else. So I sometimes think I can hear that, or I sometimes feel like my sinuses go a bit crackly, and I sort of think, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
In my house, definitely, because I think the signals are stronger in my house. But I do have people who come in here who definitely sense it,
Yeah.
and they know it's there instantly the moment they walk in. So,
But that's all sort of frequency, which is the same as music.
yeah.
So do you find that, like, when you have a good jam session, like you play the guitars and everyone's in a good mood, that frequency lingers, and so you can clear through sound healing, not just through crystal bowls and that kind of thing, but through guitars and song and your voice and drums and just people coming together and making music.
Maybe I don't know about my music. I'm not sure my music's quite as healing as some other people.
But it's expression.
I like really dissonant, weird, clashing, noisy things. So,
What's your favourite band?
I feel better after some really loud expressions of noise. But maybe that's self-expression. Maybe I'm kind of just like transmitting at that point.
Exactly.
Sorry, what was my
Which is still
favourite?
clearing. Your favourite band, like, do you like heavy metal?
Oh, my favourite band? No, I don't like heavy metal really. My wife loves it.
Yeah.
So I'll come home from
Do you
work
like
sometimes and
loud
she'll have like
noise?
Sepultura playing up. I'm like, ah, what's going on? Or bizarrely, on the flip side of that, she likes Fish, Marillion.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really sing in tune, or didn't used to. Maybe he does now. But for me, I think my favourite band would be, I really love anthemic 70s stuff. So one of my favourite songs is Mott the Hoople, All the Young Dudes. I like that. David Bowie wrote that though. So I like lots of 70s Bowie, but not really the later stuff so much. But then I also like Killing Joke, because they're really dissonant, and the guitarist is brilliant, and my guitar style probably echoes some of his guitar style, because people go, what's that you're playing? It sounds like Killing Joke. And I'm like, okay, thank you, that's a compliment. I wasn't quite intending it to, but I like it that it does. So, but I also like The Cure, because I like the guitar playing in that. But that's Robert Smith, who also played the guitar for Susie and the Banshees, and they're another one of my favourite bands. But other guitar player from Susie and the Banshees was John McGeoch, whose guitar I like, and then my friend John Klein was also in Susie and the Banshees for a bit.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of swirly, kind of chorusy, kind of sort of slightly softer edge than punk kind of guitar,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. And Psychedelic Furs, and the Chameleons. But loads of bands now sound like the Chameleons. My daughter is 25 and she's like bringing me music and going, Dad, listen to this, and I'm listening to it and I'm going, don't you think that sounds like this? And then I'm sending her stuff back from the 1980s and she's going, oh wow, yeah, it sounds
That's so
really
cool.
similar.
Yeah.
But I don't know that those people have ever heard each other. I've got one of my youngest son's friends came in here. He's a year older than my son, so I think he must be 16. And he played me some of his music. And I went, wow, I really like this. And I went, have you heard Iggy and the Stooges? And he's like, no, what's that?
Yeah.
So I'm like, right, you need to go and listen to this. And he sent me a text and he's like, I really enjoyed that. It was jolly good. Something or another. And I went, right, okay, now you've got to go and listen to Joan Jett. So then he went off and listened to that. And he's like, oh, I really enjoyed that as well. So it's like, but he'd made music that sounded like that without ever having referenced that. So how does that happen?
I know.
It's like there must be a thread running through consciousness somehow that it can jump a generation and then show up in the next generation or the generation after.
Yeah, like spirals of time, or like these sound ideas that somehow people pick up
Have you
on.
ever been to a place where you've arrived in a place and it seemed really, really familiar?
Yeah.
And then you're in that place for a while and you sort of think, this is really weird. And
Deja
then you
vu-ish.
talk to a family member later and then find out that their father used to live there, or their mum. So my grandfather lived in a place which I visited and had a strange experience of, and then found out from my parents ages later, because I thought my granddad was from Whitby,
Yeah.
but my great-granddad was from Whitby. I visited Goathland. Then I found out that my dad used to visit his granddad in Goathland, and that my dad's, I've got it all complete, my great-great-granddad was Whitby. But we actually went to stay in the house, and it was really, there was an eerie familiarity about it, which was, because I think that ideas must get passed from human to human in the DNA chain. Otherwise, how do we know how to breathe or walk, or how to open our eyes or smile, all those kind of things? Like babies do have some instinctive kind of stuff already pre-programmed. So I think we carry a lot more information about our ancestors than we give ourselves credit for.
I mean, we only use something like 1% of our brains, don't we? Or is it 10% of our brains?
I don't know. I hope I'm
It's
using
like
it.
a tiny percentage, and like I once read that if
What do we do with the other bit then?
it's like we just don't like because we do so much of our life on autopilot, we just don't tune in to the rest of it that often. But if we did,
I'm going to go back to the conversation we had when you walked in, which was about calories, and my son's got me on calorie control, and then he was going on about building this muscle in my arms. Look at that, how huge that is. But he's been doing body sculpting. I'm not going to say bodybuilding because he's not necessarily trying to make himself huge. He's just deciding which muscle groups he wants to grow and working on them. So he's going to me, Dad, I'm going to get you to do this. So I'm doing something with barbells, and then he's going like, right, I want you to do this.
Yeah.
And he got me using a muscle in the back of my arm, and he was saying that the majority of the muscle group that makes your arm big is this bit here and not that bit there. So people spend hours working out to build this muscle, but actually, if they want big arms, they need to grow that bit. And then when they grow this one really big, it all just looks disproportionate, but you have to grow that one as well. And I discovered I don't use this muscle in my arm at all, ever, for anything. So I pick stuff up all the time, but there's this weird exercise that he got me doing, and it was all down the back here afterwards. I was like going, ow! And about 2 days later, waking up in the night going like, oh God, what's happened to me?
Yeah.
And it's like this, so maybe that's, the brain is like that. Maybe we need to learn exercises to use the dormant part of the brain so we can communicate and become better as people, perhaps.
And of course, like, learning music does that. Like, when you're a kid, it wakes up.
Definitely uses a different part of the brain than this conversation we're having now.
Yeah.
Because if we were playing music, we'd probably be in harmony. I wouldn't be talking all over you.
You're not talking all over me, and sorry I keep interrupting.
I bet if my wife watches this, she'll go like, Mark, you just talked all over her for the whole thing.
But that's why I'm interviewing you. So last question.
Right,
if you could speak on behalf of all of Glastonbury, the Heart of Avalon, speak for this town, to anyone watching this, wherever they are in the world, whether they watch it tonight, tomorrow, next year, or 10 years from now, what would your message be, like, from the Heart of Avalon on behalf of Glastonbury?
My message from the Heart of Avalon. Oh my God. What would my message be from the Heart of Avalon? It would be like, treat everybody with kindness.
And don't die with your music still in you.
I don't even know if I think I would say, I think treat everybody with kindness and equality.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like, and then if you come here thinking you're special, or that this place is special, then drop that and find out what this place really is, and find out who you really are.
Yeah.
Because my belief is that the human being with the mark that thinks it's inside it, animating it, is a myth.
Yeah.
And I think that what's actually happening is that everything is animated by this one energy. So when I hear people go, oh yeah, but I'm just a spirit, I'm the spirit passenger of this body, maybe, but that spirit's not an individual spirit. So I'd say you and I are the spirit, and our bodies are passengers of the spirit. I think there's one spirit that animates everything. So even the crackle in that amplifier is part of that spirit, is in the background, or the fan spinning in the background. So I think when we understand that there is only really one spirit animating everything, then I think that gives us the ability to be kinder to each other, and to like, when things go hideously wrong, I mean, it's all just, it's unfolding, and it's not, nobody's doing it to us. We're just a part of this kind of magical goo called life that's kind of, it's doing its thing the best way that it can, including viruses. Oh my God, they sent this virus to kill us, what does it mean? It's like, no, it's the same life form in a different form trying to find a way to survive. If it wins, we haven't lost. It's just life continuing to animate and continuing to unfold. So if like human beings get wiped off the face of the planet tomorrow, I wouldn't cry over that, because my atoms would like become the virus. I might have a different way of thinking about it or whatever. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like the humanity as a race is so fucking arrogant. It's like, God, if we drop the arrogance, that would be it. That's the simplest message, isn't it? Just drop the arrogance.
Drop the stories and just be.
And I'm being as arrogant as fuck about that because I'm a human being and I'm being right about the fact that we're arrogant, right? So I need to drop that as well. So when I go, I don't like what he's doing because he's wrong. So I look at President Trump and I go, I really, really, really dislike that man. And I'm like, right, fuck him. I'm not having that. And then I go, hang on, I'm just doing him back at him. I'm mirroring his bad attitude by being angry at him. So it's like, how do I learn how to love Trump? Or how do I learn how to love Boris Johnson? Or how do I learn how to love James Heafy, the Conservative candidate for Wells? I mean, for fuck's sake, how do I learn how to love that man? It makes no sense to me, but that's it. Drop the arrogance.
Yeah, and just be.
Yeah.
Because that's what Glastonbury does teach you. It's a melting pot of that, isn't it? And sort
Yeah.
of the minute you go, okay, I'll just see what comes next. Sort of things start to happen. Magic starts to happen.
Yeah, and then you like go, have I melted yet? And if I'm asking myself that question, I probably haven't.
My gloop. Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you on behalf of everyone
you're
who's
very
going to
welcome.
watch this. This was a really lovely interview. I've enjoyed that. Thanks
Thank
a lot.
you.